breaking news this lunchtime, and that breaking news comes out of Manchester United. Manchester United have announced that Richard Arnold, formerly Group Managing Director, will become Chief Executive Officer of the club, CEO of the club, effective from the 1st of February. Ed Woodward will now step down from his role as Executive Vice Chairman, also effective from the 1st of February. Richard Arnold is saying this lunchtime, I am honoured to have the chance to serve this great club and its fans, and I am determined to return that honour in any way that I can. And the executive co-chairman, Joel Glazer, says this lunchtime, I would like to thank Ed Woodward for his tireless work on behalf of Manchester United during his 9 years as executive vice chairman and 16 years with the club. We are now looking forward to Richard and his leadership team opening this new phase in the club's evolution with ambitious plans for investment in Old Trafford, the strengthening of our engagement with fans, and continued drive towards our most important objective, winning on the pitch. So that is a big news coming out of Manchester United this lunchtime. The Executive Vice Chairman, Ed Woodward, leaving the club, and Richard Arnold is becoming the new Chief Executive Officer. Ed Woodward will not be remaining at the club in any capacity. He won't be taking up any consultancy role at the football club, as has previously been reported. So this officially brings to an end Woodward's 16-year association with Manchester United. So it's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan, and over the next hour we will dissect Ed Woodward's tenure at the football club, what went right and the many things that went wrong, with the help of some exclusive information given to this show from sources inside the club. Ed Woodward's reign at the football club as Executive Vice Chairman, Simon Jordan, is over. Simon, before we start, he was much maligned by many fans, but this is a seismic change happening inside one of football's most powerful boardrooms in football, if not the most powerful boardroom. What's your take on it?
I think it was an inevitability. I think he was positioned to take the hits by the Glazers, specifically about the European Super League, and he's taken those hits. I think a change of direction was probably required. You know, his popularity amongst United fans, whether that's right or wrong, and whether they understand the machinations of certain aspects of what it must be like to work for American owners like the Glazers, who I don't really think get Man United. Yeah. But I think now is a bigger question: is what happens next? Do we get someone else that's cut from the same cloth as Ed Woodward, and we can discuss what that cloth is? Yeah. Because he's a succession management guy, or do we get a change of direction that understands the landscape that Man United were once upon a time built to win things?
Yes, yeah.
And they no longer seem to be.
Is there an irony here, Simon, that the very thing so many football fans railed against earlier this year, including the Manchester United fans, namely the ESL, the Super League, was the very thing that brought Woodward down? Because we understand he told the Glazers, as we've mentioned, he wasn't the man to go front and centre to push the Super League case for Manchester United.
Yeah, there is an element of irony about it, because ultimately you would expect the United perspective, and having been in meetings and understood the way the so-called Big Six operate, for the executive vice chairman to be fundamentally disagreeing with his owners about the strategy of how this European Super League would play out. I think he was sensible to have that view, because in the guise that it was being put forward, as you will remember, my first take was they don't get it with this, right? So he was sensible to have that view. I question the legitimacy of any observations about reality is that he was against his owner's perspective, because United are a machine built to be at the very front of the queue financially, and they've been at the front of the queue when it comes to distributions inside the Premier League, the arguments being run about how much they're entitled to and how other parts of the league are really held together by the Big Six. To suddenly to have this sword of morality being the reasons why you don't want to continue with something, I question. But by the same token, if that is indeed the position and he does diverge from his owners, then it's incumbent upon him to leave. It's incumbent upon him. And given the fact that he has been the architect of managerial appointments, which we'll talk about later on, which have not brought success, this has not been a successful period. The 8 years prior to Ed Woodward's tenure brought in X amount of trophies, 8 trophies. The 8 years during his period in it brought in 3. So we've seen a 200 or 300% drop off in attainment, and there's lots of reasons, i.e. the success and challenges of other clubs.
Of course.
But that's irrelevant to United fans.
Yeah.
They're the biggest club in the world.
Well, as I said,
in their view.
during this hour, Simon, we will dissect Woodward's tenure at the football club with the help of some exclusive information given to this show, Jim White and Simon Jordan, from sources inside the club.
Good sources, by the way, as well.
Very much so. Simon, one area we've got to look at during Woodward's time at Manchester United, recruitment.
Yeah.
Now, Manchester United fans listening all around the world can pin their earbacks now. It's understood that Woodward looks back on the initial few years after Sir Alex Ferguson in this area of recruitment with huge regret. That when it comes to recruitment, they didn't get it right. So much so, they would give themselves a paltry 3 or 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Sources inside the football club say that early period was, quote, it was like dragging an anchor, making the same mistakes time after time after time. It's felt that they didn't have the recruitment department set up to deliver recommendations to the managers. This is Manchester United we're talking about.
Yeah.
How do you look at United's recruitment over the last 8 or 9 years?
I mean, you've got to look at the reality. There's 2 kinds of recruitment. There's the recruitment of the manager and there's the recruitment of players. Right?
Yeah.
And both of those fronts, I'm afraid, they've come up a little bit short.
Yeah.
But if you look at the idea and suggest that a club of that stature, there's been a massive cliff drop in 2013 when Ferguson and David Gill departed. That cliff drop was quite significant. But if you've got best in class sitting in the boardroom, then that's the difference between it taking a long time to adjust to. And let's not underestimate, United are a unique football club. They're a unique football club because of the size and scale, reputation, and all of the machinations and levers and nuances of United. Put aside Manchester City and Chelsea. Now, they're great footballing clubs, but they don't have the same structure, the same level of nuance and peculiarity that a American-owned, share-based business of a reputation of the size of Man United will have. It's monolithic at times. So those challenges are one thing, and you accept those are going to give you difficulties. But when you start talking about dragging an anchor for 3 or 4 years, with the best respect in the world, that, to me, despite all the challenges, isn't good enough, because you've got to fix problems hard and fast. And whilst it's easy to sit on the outside, good people, effective leadership doesn't always come if the owners aren't the most in touch with the reality of what the football club is. And given United fans are a very unique band, they saw off Sky's bid in the early 90s or mid-90s. They've got a unique sense of ownership of this football club. A lot of key indicators were missed. And if you're dragging an anchor for 3 or 4 years and that anchor hasn't even been cut loose or repositioned, then you have to look at yourselves and say, it's no good. It's no good saying I kept repeating the same mistakes, and then you repeat them on your way out by putting a manager in place as your last appointment, pretty much that dropped you proverbially right in it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's extremely damning. And I'll say it again. Sources inside the club say that the early period after Sir Alex went was, quotes, it was like dragging an anchor, making the same mistakes time and time again. They felt they didn't have the recruitment department set up to deliver recommendations to the managers. On the surface of it, Simon, why were they not ready for the departure of Sir Alex?
I mean, let's qualify this, right? Because Harry Hindsight's the best trader in town, right? But you don't need hindsight if you're good at what you do. But you also have to remember that most of these managers, this argument that they needed a recruitment network to be able to provide recommendations to managers, right? Let's be clear. Managers want to make their own decisions. Half these managers that we're talking about, whether it's Jose Mourihno or whether it's Louis van Gaal, right? And let's put Solskjaer to the side, right? We'll deal with him later.
Yeah.
We'll talk about those two, very significant managers. They would be in a territory of saying, I know what I want. I know who I want to buy. Get out of my way with your bureaucracy and let me buy who I want. So the argument that they didn't have the network, and of course, Ferguson would have run that football club on the basis of Alex Ferguson was a unique character.
Of course.
27 years in charge of that football club afforded him and bought him a situation where not only the success it gave him is Alex's way or the highway. And there's something about that if you bring success allows you that luxury. When you step off the cliff and all of a sudden all that intellectual capital's gone, it's gone out of the dugout, it's gone out of the boardroom. And then you've got a bunch of Americans that view football as an opportunity for them. They've leveraged a football club. They're interested in their share price. All of a sudden, you've got a real different landscape. So when you talk about the idea that you didn't have the recruitment network, yeah, it's poor, but that's not the reason why you didn't get what you should have got out of the 8 years. You appointed the wrong people, or you allowed the wrong signings.
I mentioned we would be bringing some exclusive information inside the news that Woodward is going. Let me tell you, Simon, and everybody listening and watching this lunchtime, it's our understanding that in the early years, post Sir Alex, part of the issues with recruitment at Manchester United was down to veto power struggles between managers and the recruitment department. Let me give you 2 examples of that, Simon. Under David Moyes, the recruitment department at United lined up Thiago Alcantara, now of Liverpool.
Yeah.
But the club ended up with Marouane Fellaini due to manager's veto. And this also caused problems during the Jose Mourinho era, because Mourinho was told no to a defender that he wanted to bring in, but it's believed the right procedures are in place now, and the club feels that they're in a much better place now with recruitment. So it seems in the first few years post Sir Alex, there were too many cooks.
It's a transition, and you give latitude to that. You have to give latitude to it, because you've gone from one environment where you've got a manager that was more than capable of juggling a variety of balls, including player contracts, including player recruitment, including player discipline, including every aspect of the club, right? Not running the balance sheet, all that sort of stuff, but really the real operation. That then changes, because there are not many of those guys about. So you're always going to have this cliff edge, but you can empathise with it for a period of time. And the first appointment, everybody knew it. David Moyes couldn't resist it. But any poor bugger that took over after Alex Ferguson was always going to be in a devil's situation.
Yeah.
Because it was a poison chalice.
Absolutely.
And Fellaini, and of course, Thiago, you're looking at them and saying, okay, you're comparing a silk purse to a sow's ear in certain people's views. And that's a great example to suggest that maybe the manager was at fault there, because he had limited aspirations, having managed Everton, against the world and the sort of Mr. Marjoram's emporium that he had at Man United of players he could have chosen. So I understand that argument. But when you're still making it 4 years down and you've still got that anchor.
That's right.
I wonder why you've got that anchor, and I wonder how effective you've been in ensuring that the streamline effect. And maybe United felt that after Ferguson, we know we've got to change. All the other clubs are gearing up. They're getting more resource. They're getting better facilities. They're getting better solutions to problems. They're getting bigger teams of more competent people who are all best in class.
Sure.
And maybe we've got to change as well.
Yeah.
And they fell in between 2 stools.
Right. More exclusive news that's come our way on this show as Ed Woodward goes, and that is the breaking news this lunchtime. Woodward's time at Manchester United is over as Executive Vice Chairman. Richard Arnold takes over as Chief Executive. Simon, maybe one of his most famous, Ed Woodward's most famous moments, if you like, in recruitment was one of his last. And that is Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, it's our understanding on this show that over the years there had been many discussions about the return to Manchester United of Cristiano Ronaldo. It might have happened when he finished up at Real Madrid. And of course, he was in his pomp at that time.
Yeah.
But we understand, Simon, it wasn't possible because Mourihno made it clear to the top brass at Manchester United that he, at that time, had other priorities.
Yep.
So for the first time, we now know it's emerged Ronaldo could have returned to United in 2018, but Mourihno didn't want him.
Yeah, and obviously I understand that's a great soundbite, but from a footballing decision, I think it was possibly the right one. I don't think there was a great love-in when they were together at Madrid. So I'm not surprised to have heard that. And I'm not surprised that Mourihno, if he was up, if we're given this as a binary choice, right?
Yeah.
You get, or a one-dimensional choice, you can have this central defender, but you can't have this player. And Mourihno looks at it and goes, well, I've got an embarrassment of riches of forward players. So whilst Ronaldo could do a job for me, this guy can do a better job for me. So you understand to some extent, but also you understand then that the manager is empowered.
Yeah.
The manager of Manchester United, as rightly should be his position, has the right to say, I don't want this and I do want that. So that gives you some understanding of it. And if you then heard from the person that we've been talking to, that they were able to be influential in making decisions for the manager on the manager's behalf, you'd have a worry then about who was actually picking the team for Man United.
Sure thing. What we do know is that the getting of Cristiano Ronaldo to Manchester United, when they eventually did get him in recent times, proved to be one of Ed Woodward's most complex ever deals. And in time, we're assured, this show will be told much more detail of how it actually came to be that Cristiano Ronaldo returned to Manchester United.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.